Hi, my name's Carina Turner. I'm a woman against waste. Um, Women Against Waste started as a clothes swap in the beautiful region of East Gippsland in Victoria, on the land of the Gunno people. We are very fortunate to live in East Gippsland and look out over the Gippsland Lakes, and we're reminded every day of how important nature is and that we all need to take care of it. I'm your MC for the last session of the day, Minimising Household Waste. I'd also like to remind everybody that this whole event has been a free event, and Sustainable House Day welcome all donations, and you can donate to www.sustainablehouseday.com/donate. Now, while passive houses and solar panels and electric vehicles are the rock stars of sustainability, household waste reduction is a simple way for everybody to reduce their environmental footprint. We have always been great recyclers, but I was introduced to the idea of zero waste and waste minimisation several years ago, and we haven't looked back. Today we've been joined by 4 families to chat about how they minimise their household waste. I'd like to remind everybody to pop your questions down, use the Q&A button to ask any questions. And now I'd like to introduce our homes. We have Olivia and Chris from the Today Sustainable House. Olivia and Chris, or have we got Chris? Welcome. Can we hear you, Chris? Not yet. You're off mute.
We might just need to move on to the next presenter and circle back around. I'll just message them now.
Not a problem at all. Next we have Danny and Manu. Welcome, and please tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thanks, Carina. Hi, everyone. My name is Manuela, and this is Daniel, my husband. We live in Breves, Victoria, which is in the west of Melbourne. We started our sustainability journey about 4 years ago, as we watched ABC's War on Waste, and like many people, we bought a Keep Cup. From there, we just started considering our choices more and more from an environmental perspective.
Yeah, so we started small, just reusing our Keep Cup when getting coffee. Then we bought a bokashi bin, which I mentioned on my video, helped us reduce waste, our food waste. And whenever we went to the supermarket, we tried to avoid packaging, so buying loose produce with our reusable bags. Also favoring reusable glass or cardboard over plastic whenever possible. We started collecting various things that couldn't be recycled through curb recycling, so we could get them recycled separately, like e-waste, clothes, soft plastics. And more recently, we, since a little over a year ago, I think, we started transitioning to buying pretty much all our groceries from bulk of food shops with our own containers. So today, I think we can go for at least 2 months without putting any bins out. But like everyone else, we're just still learning as we go.
Fabulous. That's I think the war against waste had an effect on a lot of people. That's fabulous. Next we have Michael Mobbs from the Sydney Sustainable House. Welcome, Michael. Is Michael with us?
I'm sorry,
Oh, hello, Michael.
Hello, thank you, and welcome to you all, and hello to everybody. In 1996, the 4-person household put in a larger bathroom and kitchen, and in that 3-month renovation, we disconnected from town water and sewer and put in solar panels in 1996. I think that was almost enough to get you certified. And no water or sewage or stormwater left the house then. But the big thing that I've learned is that the house is trivial, that the growing, production, transport and waste of food is, if graphed as a country in a bar graph, is third in line after the most polluting country, which is China, then America, and then food. So I'm looking forward to talking about what we do about food waste in this session. It's great to have the opportunity to share the story here, what we're doing in Chippendale, and I'm looking forward to listening to everybody else's story.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you, Michael. So you've been on this journey for quite some time and obviously saved a lot of waste going to landfill. Next, we have joining with us Rita and Rob from the established passive solar house in Wanneroo, I think it is.
Yeah, g'day. It's Wanneroo.
Wanneroo.
Yeah, and it's 2J as well, but it's good that there's 2 West Australians on today. We're Rob and Rita. We live in our passive solar house that is in the rural part of Wanneroo, as you said, 25 kilometres north of Perth. And we've lived there for 30 years. But this session isn't about our house, it's about how we live in it and how we minimise our household waste. And we're both children of parents who lived through the Second World War, and they didn't have anything, so they taught us not to waste anything, including finishing what's on your plate. So we don't waste very much. We take about a week to fill a 10-litre rubbish bucket. We fill our 200-litre Sulo recycling bin about every 8 weeks. And so we can answer your questions about not wasting things, recycling, using our veggie scraps, not wasting water. But we're not evangelists about this. We've just adopted some sensible habits, and we can talk about that when people ask questions.
Lovely, lovely. Can we go back to Chris and Olivia? Are we able to hear from them? Hopefully, not at the moment, but hopefully they will be able to join us when we're asking some questions. One of my first questions that I'd like to ask is probably been answered a little bit by some of you already in your introductions. And is this something that you've always done? Is it something that your family did? Or is it something that you've just recently taken up? And if your family did it, how did they hand on that information to you? Michael?
I grew up on a farm and we didn't have a garbage service, so that gave us an incentive to manage things. But I learned then about food waste and there being no such thing. So I think that gave me a real way of seeing the world, a level of confidence about it. But it's really only been in the last 10 or 15 years that I've realised how systemic and major and strategically important it is to change the way we manage food waste. I'm going to talk about what we do in Chippendale. We're getting about 300 kilos of food waste a week in our streets and composting that. So I'll get onto that. Does that answer the question, Carina?
Yeah. No, I look forward to hearing that story. And Rob and Rita, you mentioned also that it was a family thing. So you were taught by your parents that there was no such thing as waste and that you needed to use everything. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, my parents were from Switzerland and from Holland, and they both lived through the Second World War, and so we keep hearing the stories about how hard it was when you had no food and you had to make do with what you have and make the best of what you have. And that's what we've just learned from childhood. Eat what's on your plate, and you're not getting any more, and whatever. So yeah, we've just taken that on board and taken it into our marriage. Rob's parents were from England and they had the same background basically. So we pretty much grew up the same and yeah, took that ethic on and carrying it on, and our kids are doing the same now. So
lovely.
And it's not difficult.
Yeah. Not difficult once you know how. Dan and Manu, you've got a slightly different story. where you were motivated more recently by War Against Waste. So can you tell us what you were like prior to War Against Waste as opposed to how you see yourself now?
Yeah, I think we weren't, I guess, super wasteful before. I also, my parents, especially my dad, had difficult upbringing, and he always taught me as well to not waste food and, you know, trying to make things last for as long as possible, not just to buy too many things. But I think it wasn't until more recently that I connected that with more of an environmental concern.
Yep. Are we able to hear from Olivia and Chris yet? Not yet. So can I ask, what is some of the easiest things that you can eliminate from, you know, the idea of just throwing it away, throwing it into the council bins? What is it that you think would be a good first step for people who would like to go down this path? Yes, Rob.
Yeah, buy real food, not packaged food. You know, about the only thing we buy that is packaged is tinned beans and frozen vegetables. You know, just about everything else is comes as fresh food, and that means that you don't have any rubbish to throw away if you are just buying fresh vegetables and fresh meat, etc.
And all the leftovers from the vegetables and whatever goes into the compost and the worm farm and goes into the veggie garden.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the soil, so it gets recycled.
Yeah, and you grow some of your own food.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah. But that waste, then it's not actually waste; it's just nutrients for the soil.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, can you hear us yet? I can see you. Not yet. Perhaps he's working with behind the scenes. Michael, you were talking about you're actually doing this in the street. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Chippendale's, besides Sydney's central business district, it's actually where the first market gardens were, and it's about 20 city blocks, terraces, warehouses, and we have about 1,000 fruit trees, herbs and plants in the streets, and we've got a range of compost options in the streets as well, some of which are connected to the verge, or where there's only bitumen, they sit on the bitumen and there's a base in the tank and so on. There's about 34 households, some of them from other suburbs, that come here and use our public composting. So the 300 kilos a week gives us about 30 kilos of compost, and we put that on the street plants because the soil is quite poor. For me, I would break your question down into two, not just what I or we or the people sharing this conversation can do, but local councils, I think, are the biggest polluters. I think there's quite a variation between councils. Some have small bins and you pay less. Some just have one bin. In America and Europe, there are places where you only pay if you put out the waste. And there's no financial incentive or reward for Rita and Rob and Dan and Olivia and Chris, anybody in this conversation generally, no reward for putting out less or no waste. If I don't use electricity, as I don't here, or town water, I don't pay. If I don't use gas or whatever, I don't pay. But for garbage, if I don't use it, I still pay. So I tried an experiment of withholding that part of my rates attributable to garbage for Sydney City Council, which speaks loudly of its sustainability goals. Anyway, after I think a 4-month discussion, they've refused and they want me to pay my outstanding rates. So I gave them a chance and now I'm coming for them.
Interesting, interesting. Watch this space. Chris, are we able to hear from you yet?
Does that work?
Oh, we can. Yay.
G'day, Chris.
Hello, everyone.
Chris, can you tell us a
Hello.
little bit about your story, your household minimising waste story?
Yeah, I guess what all comes fairly natural to me and to us. It's all common sense. I grew up on a family farm, one of 4 boys, and my mum was a war baby, one of 8, so I did it fairly tough. And it was all about just I guess working smart and minimising usage, reusing. I certainly certainly pretty. I'm a bit of the driver in the household regards recycling and reusing and making the most of everything that comes through. Whether it's the fridge or the shopping and the things, it's just ingrained in me from my mother, I guess. And from with the chooks out, we're in the middle of a family farm. We subdivided a block off the farm, and I work professionally off it in ag, but we live quite comfortably, and we don't have a lot of waste apart from overflowing the recycling bin every week.
Lovely. We've got a question here about worm farms and composting. Has anybody got any tips on either worm farms or composting, how to do it well? We got our worm farm probably 12 months ago. We inherited from a family who were moving away. And I still feel I've got healthy worms, but still feel like I'm learning how to do it well. Has anybody got any tips on great composting and worm farming?
Shall I?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yep.
I've found that having a paper shredder is great. It cost me about $80 from, I think I got it from Officeworks. And when I go out for coffee or something, I get the newspapers from the cafes who are glad to see it taken away. And I probably put about, by volume, probably about 100 litres of shredded paper on the different compost systems around here. And that really makes up for the people who don't know how to compost, and it increases the worm populations as well as the rate of decay, and it creates a more viable environment for all those things in addition to the ones that break down. So if you wanted to really kick your home composting along, whether you've got a worm farm or not, a paper shredder is a good idea because it means that you don't have, there's always some waste paper. I've just put some cardboard from a pasta container through the shredder while I was waiting to come on. And it gives me a quiet pleasure finding more things to shred.
And I suppose that's another thing. It's actually not waste. You know, some people would look at the cardboard box and say that it's waste and put it in the recycling bin, or it's not waste. It's actually a resource to be used to feed your
I love that, Carina. There's no such thing as waste, just a failure of imagination. Nature knows no such thing as waste.
Yeah.
Absolutely spot on.
Has anybody tried composting dog poo? We're allowed to say that sort of thing. Anybody tried that? I've heard of it, but I haven't actually tried it yet. Any hands? No. I do.
I'll just come in though that Ron Evans, who asked this question, is probably further along than us in terms of what's happening there. But I understand what she's saying, that you know, we don't have a dog, so we don't have to compost dog poo. But you know, you're limited in what you can put in a worm farm, and in summertime it's hard to keep it cool enough to keep the worms alive, especially if you've got a small backyard. So
in Western Australia.
Yeah. So yeah, that's. And I'll add one more thing in response to Michael about the local government, and that is, in Switzerland, you put your rubbish in a bag. You have to buy the bag for X dollars, and so you use it less than you need to. And in Holland, they weigh your bin, and you get charged by the weight of bin that they put on their on the truck.
But they also
Yeah.
have lots and lots of facilities at shopping centres and everywhere where you can recycle just about everything. You can take everything down to the shops to, you know, all bottles and glass and plastic and you name it. You can just recycle anything. So there's really very little that needs to go into the bin. And everybody has about 5 recycling bins inside their house where they separate everything. So it's just changing the way that you think about things and changing how you operate.
Yeah. Dan and Manu, you changed your lifestyle to reduce your waste. Do you find that it's taken you any more time, or you've made savings in time or in money by reducing your waste?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of changing our lifestyle, I think, was cooking more and making more of our own snacks and anything that to try and avoid buying. I think it would, like, to an extent, certain things were more expensive because we had to buy in from specialty shops, whereas we just bought less products that had the premium added to them because, you know, the commercial products, we bought more raw products, they were cheaper. So I think it balanced out. Overall, I'd say we probably spend less by just the fact that we're making most of what we eat.
Yeah, and valuing the food that you make, so therefore you're not throwing that away.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, fabulous.
I've got a tip for oyster shells. I have a crowbar. I put the oyster shells in that, and I've got chooks, and they have no teeth, so they need grit. So I just heroically pound the oysters with the things and throw that in, and the chooks eat it. So even things like oyster shells can be turned into something food cycle.
Certainly in Victoria, some of the restaurants are keeping their oyster shells, and they are being used in Port Phillip Bay for habitat.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there is no such thing as waste. Chris, you're on a farm, and I know that some of the farms around here don't actually have any waste collection, or if they do, then they have to, you know, pay extra for it, or they have to take it to the tip. Does that change how you do your buying, knowing that, you know, you don't have that waste stream, you don't have that collection?
Well, actually, yeah, we have full collection here, recycling and general waste bins, whatnot, and yeah, weekly or actually fortnightly for the recycling.
Yep. So do you fill up your recycling bin?
So, sorry, I missed that part.
Do you use your recycling bin? Is that something that?
Oh yeah, it actually should be the other way around. We fill the recycling bin twice in the fortnight. That we have to wait. I'm often on the top jumping, smashing the recycling down and wait to get to the fortnight. And our green bin gets, I think we've got a quarter full at times every week. So yeah, I need a letter written into the local shire. Yep.
Do any of your shires practice FOGO? So they're actually collecting the food waste from the homes so that they can recycle it. I know in East Gippsland they don't. In far East Gippsland, in Malakuta, they have a kitchen to garden waste stream, but that's a much smaller community. Does some of the shires in or councils in Melbourne have a FOGO system? Do any of yours, Dan?
Yeah, our council, Maribyrnong, just recently started accepting food waste into the green bin.
Yeah, and it's a program to actually to keep that food waste out of the landfill and therefore reduce the methane production. Help reduce the methane production.
Can I?
Yes, Michael.
I'm against FOGO. I'm against bioenergy. Somebody who was using the compost here is now participating in a trial by Sydney City Council to take the food waste. I think it's FOGO, I'm not sure, or it might go to a bioenergy place. So wasn't aware of how it was functioning, and I asked her, so do you get compost from? And she said, no. And I just don't understand why we would pay to have food waste taken away when we can compost it,
Deal with it yourself.
turn into valuable product, not by fertiliser. I just don't get it. And I don't get councils. I understand why they're trying to do something, but as Rob and Rita said, there are other countries who have reduced household bills and rewarded people who don't throw out food waste and grow it.
Yeah, but if you're in an apartment block, then you can't do very much with that food waste. So there needs to be a mechanism for those people.
There certainly are systems like, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Bird Brickworks, which is a shopping centre development in Melbourne. And they deal with all of their waste on site, and they've got a farm on top of the building where they produce food for their restaurant, and use things like dehydrators to produce a resource for their soil. Yeah. Somebody's asked, Bill's asked, we used to talk about throwing things away, but now we know so much better that there's no away anymore. I think that was highlighted when China stopped taking the recycling. And, you know, we could put our bins out and throw it away. And then we found out all of a sudden where that away was. And I think I'd like to ask you, Dan and Manu, was that part of your decision? Is that finding out where your waste was going?
Yeah, I think as far as food waste, like we just weren't aware that it had so much emissions, like that it actually emitted methane. And I think that was a significant part of why we started composting. Also, when we learned about recycling and how certain things that we thought were recyclable weren't, the fact that plastic just gets worse and worse as it goes through the recycling process, the fact that cardboard, you know, when it gets oily, it can actually contaminate other parts of the recycling process. So I think, yeah, all of that definitely made us change.
So it sounds to me like the War Against Waste was the start of your education, but you've done lots of more education since then to make sure that you're doing the right thing. What other resources have you, where else have you gone to get your information on what to do the right way?
There are actually lots of Facebook groups that we've joined since, and especially some local ones. Zero Waste, there's, I think, books as well. But yeah, I think I find really helpful the groups where people just share tips, and then you can ask things, or what do you do with this thing, or where can you find green alternatives for this type of product. That really helped.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's, like anything, you can Google it. There's so many resources out there. Yeah.
I've got a comment.
Yes, Michael.
It's just come up. It says share waste is good. It's an Australian website, and you can either use a publicly listed place. So, for example, we have our bins listed there, although we've closed it down because we're at capacity, and then when we put out more composting options, we open it up again. But Share Waste is not just Australian, but it's worldwide. It's a really terrific website, Share Waste.
Yeah, it's a fabulous app that you can download. Go to the App Store and download it and share your waste with somebody else's, or find somebody who will accept your waste. I've got another question here from Christopher. Could we eliminate a lot of our waste by not producing it in the first place? This would stop the need to collect it. Does anybody, when you go shopping, what what sort of goes through your mind as you're purchasing things? Is there a thing that you remind yourself that about bringing waste into your family, into your home, or how do you remember this, Chris? Do you
Yeah,
you know?
like when I'm certainly shopping. We've got three girls, young family. I certainly make a conscious effort not to buy a lot of plastic. So if there's the snack bags with eight packs in a big bag, or 10 bags, or banana cake, and eight individual slices, plastic wrap within another plastic wrap. Yeah, just obviously that when you buy bulk or buy a loaf of bread or something instead, or I think it's just, for me, it's just common sense, and for us, it's just reducing that plastic coming through the house. If it's paper or something that can be recycled, we've got a compost. We just put, we've got to the point of putting old cotton clothes in there, or whatever can be broken down. We wouldn't say we're hippies, but we certainly, we just, for anything we can reduce going to that green bin weekly, it's coming naturally, and the kids are involved as well. But certainly it starts in the shops, that's for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was one of my last questions was, and I think you've touched on it, Chris, and Rob and Rita have touched on it, that during the Depression and during the wars, there was no such thing as waste. Everything was recycled, reused, restored, repaired, all those fabulous R's. And slowly but surely during the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, Australia has produced more and more waste. With War on Waste, that has helped to make people more aware of the waste that they're producing. But how do you think, for mainstream Australia, how do you think we can say, hey, this is an important thing? Because I know a lot of people didn't watch War on Waste. They don't watch the ABC. So how can as a community, we reach the mainstream? Chris, have you got any tips?
Oh, I know that's a tough one, and that is my concern. I do watch the ABC, grew up with it, and I know some of those shows that I get involved and watch and think it's normal. I know the mainstream, down in Perth and the large cities are still, consuming, and a lot of waste is coming out of a lot of households around the place. So, whether I think Dan mentioned before with all the Facebook groups, and somewhere there's got to be a way to get amongst the mass population that is mass and thought of what's going, obviously into the rubbish bin or out the car window.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, roadside waste is one of the things that makes me go on lots of walks with big bags to pick up, because our wildlife certainly don't need to live amongst all that. Dan and Manoya, have you got any ideas? You were reached through War Against Waste. And I'm wondering about your friends and neighbours and family. How are they influenced to reduce their waste?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have noticed that certain things that we do differently, and they ask us about that, and we always talk about that, probably to an extreme extent. We're seeing a bit of, like, I guess, nerds in that topic. But I think we've definitely seen some of our friends change because of that. So they were, I think, motivated through that.
Yeah, it's a fine balancing act between them thinking you're extremists and being, scared away, or being inspired. Yeah, there's a comment here from Alison, and she said that she gets overwhelmed every now and again, and she's a perfectionist. One of the hashtags that Women Against Waste use is not perfect, just better. So every day we try and get a little bit better. There is no such thing as perfect in the world, but we can all do a little bit better every day.
Can I add something to this question too,
Certainly,
Carina?
I'd love to.
And that's Sustainable House Day, you know, there are 148 participants in this session right now, and if those people take something out of this and go and start doing things and tell their friends and neighbours, then that's a place that it can start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in Vermont, in America,
Mm-hmm.
they banned food waste,
Mm-hmm.
and they got there by putting a price on waste. When they found that in other states, I think there's about 30-something states in America which have a by weight or by use fee for garbage. The food was the quickest to reduce, and those people who composted or recycled their food in those states also reduced their general waste by 40 to 60%, depending on the states. And the states range from Texas and places there to places up New Hampshire. And I think, to answer your question, how do we get to the people who didn't see war and waste? We get to them through their hip pocket and changing the paying system for garbage. We put a price on it. If you use it, you pay. If you don't use it, you don't pay. And at the moment, one of the rivers of gold that comes out of communities to a few hands is through the waste system, where councils pay other companies to have these huge lumbering trucks, and they each do about 100K per trip. And all that money goes through the council to those big companies who are just dumping it. It's just a bad proposition. So I'm not going to say anything more about local government because I may seem possessed by their inefficiency. But it's not just we in this conversation. It's the people who are in control of the waste pricing system who are the biggest barrier to cutting waste.
Yeah, Ronnie's asked, wondering if charging homes per bin would lead to more littering on streets, and I certainly know that dumping in the bush is one of those things that, you know, people. There are some people who cannot afford to you know, extra fees to reduce their waste. And so therefore, you know, they see their options are dumping in the bin. And I suppose, you know, I think, you know, like the War on Waste, like the Sustainable House Day, education is so important. And it starts with those you know, helpful conversations.
Yeah. There's a study of illegal dumping by the US EPA that accompanied pay-as-you-throw programs. People didn't pay more. They only paid if they used it. So it wasn't an extra cost in any of the states that introduced it. In parallel, they conducted audits and had a range of methods of ascertaining whether or not people were illegally dumping. And the US EPA report was compiled in consultation with all the participating states. And it can be a problem, but if you have an education program and community pressure, you can actually change those people as well.
Yeah, we can save the world.
Carina, I'm aware time's almost running out. There was
yes,
one thing I wanted to add that we haven't covered yet.
Yeah.
It's a type of household waste is your equipment, your appliances. And if you buy things which last, it's cheaper in the long run if you can afford them to start with. And if you buy things that are good quality, you can usually fix them. So it saves a lot of money and saves a lot of waste if you do that. Yeah,
absolutely. And repair cafes are popping up all through the country. And we do only have a few minutes left. And I'd like to ask you all very briefly, what would be your easiest thing, your tip for somebody? What is the easiest place to start? Rob? Or
Rita, you say something? No. We said it before, buy real food. Don't buy food that's packaged. It's healthier for you. It's usually cheaper. You can get it from a farmer's market or whatever, or a bulk food store.
Or grow it yourself. Yep.
Yeah.
But that's harder for some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fix things.
Fix things.
Don't just throw them away. Just fix them, because lots of things are fixable.
Yeah,
You can keep on using it.
darning, sewing, yeah.
Oh, even your kettle, even all sorts of things. I've fixed all sorts of things and made them work for another 10 years.
And again, you know, we have this amazing resource called Google that we can, you know, if we don't know how to do it, we can always Google it. Chris, what's your biggest tip? What's your tip for the easy thing, and something easy to start with?
Obviously, we've got concerns about where the recycling is going to, but it comes naturally if you just recycle your rubbish and waste through the kitchen. There's obviously a lot of other ways some can and can't recycle, reuse, but I think separating your papers and plastics and whatnot comes easily, naturally to most, including kids, and reusing cardboard boxes with kids. And, you know, kids get a lot of joy out of some fairly basic things that can come out of the kitchen from packaging from the shop. So I guess probably that's the easiest and cheapest, and anyone can do it no matter their circumstances.
Yep. Michael?
2 tips for the price of 1.
2 tips, lovely.
Firstly, do what they do in schools in Japan. The children clean the schools. That would save administration and other costs for the schools, but also it would teach children not to throw things on the ground, and it would teach them that there's a circularity to their behaviour. Second thing is, only buy food from farmers markets. The money goes to the farmer. If a farmer sells something through Coles and Woolworths, they never get more than 10 cents on the dollar. When you talk to farmers, you learn so much. They teach you when you buy from, and then you don't buy this stuff.
Yeah, all the packaging. Yeah, absolutely. Dan and Manu, the easiest thing. You said you started with a coffee cup, a keep cup. What from there? Where would you go?
I guess just carrying your water bottle, your reusable water bottle, you know, and making choices that are more sustainable. So if you have to buy food, like let's say lunch, because you're out in the city, not these days, but prior to that, make the more sustainable choice to buy something that it's gonna come on a compostable container, or if they can put your stuff on your own container, and just make those choices a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. We have gone into cafes and asked for no packaging at all. It's fine, I've got a hand, you can pop it in my hand. And, you know, for some people that can be a little bit challenging. But once they realise what your motivation is, you know, the person behind the counter is usually pretty excited to see that that's what you're trying to achieve. I'd just like to add that some of my tips include you choosing household cleaners like vinegar and bicarb soda, so that, you know, if we go up and down the supermarket aisles, you are tempted constantly to buy waste, or what will end up as waste. And that's certainly one thing that we changed in our household.
There's about 4 aisles in the supermarket that we don't go down. The lollies, confectionery, and the poison alley.
Yeah. Poison alley, I like that. That would be soft drinks, is it? Yeah. And, you know, again, the little things like the soda streams, if you like bubbled water, that you make it at home. Yeah. Absolutely.
Talking about your household cleaners, go to the eco shop and buy stuff that's not poisonous, and lemon juice and vinegar and bicarb soda and all that sort of stuff makes a huge difference.
Yep. And these are things that, you know, we started with your families who went through the war and through Europe, and, you know, who've been affected by not having a lot in their lives, and therefore valuing things. And I think, you know, if we look back at what people used to do and get inspiration from them, have the conversations with people who are older. You know, what did you do in the olden days? Because often it wasn't about fancy products. It was about ingenuity, reusing all those wonderful R's that we can all implement today. Is there anything anybody else would like to say before we finish up?
Thanks.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Yes.
And if I can just add one more thing, Carina. Are we going?
Yeah, we can hear.
It's just for like everyone to take one step at a time. You don't have to change your lifestyle dramatically, but if you start with your keep cup, with your coffee cup, for example, or buying real food from the supermarket or growing your own food, it's just one step at a time, and you're already doing amazing things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Using natural products, so that when they do come to the end of their life, that they can return to the earth. You know, from natural products, from the clothes that you choose, the cleaners that you choose, the food that you choose. Yeah.